The key slipped through my trembling fingers twice before I managed to slide it into the lock. I'd been rushing all morning. Important meeting, spilled coffee, forgotten phone. Now I was going to be doubly late. I pushed the door open, my mind already mapping the quickest path to the bedroom nightstand where my phone always sat charging. But I froze in the entryway. Music played from our bedroom, slow, sultry jazz that Noah only ever put on when we... My heels suddenly felt too loud against the hardwood as I moved forward, drawn by a force beyond rational thought. I heard a woman's laugh, light, breathy, followed by Noah's deeper rumble. A sound I knew intimately after 12 years of marriage. I should have turned around. I should have walked out and pretended I'd never come home. But something propelled me forward until I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, the room where I'd slept beside him for over a decade, where we'd made love, fought, reconciled, and whispered our deepest secrets. Noah's back was to me. His dress shirt was unbuttoned, hanging loose. His hands were tangled in long auburn hair, nothing like my short black bob. The woman's eyes met mine over his shoulder. They widened in shock, but then, and this is what would haunt me, her lips curled into a smile. Not embarrassment. Not shame. Just triumph. That's when Noah turned and saw me standing there, his face drained of color. "Eliza," he whispered, "you're supposed to be at work." "I forgot my phone," I said, my voice unnervingly calm as I pointed to the nightstand where it sat, screen lighting up with notifications. "I can see you're busy. Don't mind me." I walked to the nightstand, grabbed my phone, and walked out, closing the bedroom door behind me with a soft click that somehow felt more final than a slam. In the hallway, I leaned against the wall, legs suddenly unable to support my weight. I unlocked my phone with shaking fingers and opened my calendar. Next to today's date, April 17th, I created a new entry. The day Noah Taylor died to me. Then I straightened my blazer, wiped a single tear from my cheek, and walked out of what had been my home just 15 minutes earlier. Noah didn't know it yet, but I was about to become his worst nightmare. 6 years ago, when Noah and I were struggling financially, his grandmother Vivian died and left him everything: the historic Tudor house in Oakwood Heights, her investment portfolio, and controlling interest in Taylor Properties, the commercial real estate company his grandfather had built from nothing. Noah, who'd been working as a mid-level financial analyst, suddenly became CEO of a company worth millions. "We're set for life, Liz," he'd said, twirling me around our tiny apartment the day of the reading of the will. "Everything I've ever wanted, everything we've ever wanted, it's all possible now." And for a while, it was like a dream. We moved into the Tudor, renovated it to blend its historic charm with modern conveniences. Noah took to running the company with unexpected aptitude. I continued my work as a corporate attorney, making partner 2 years later at Bennett, Okafor, and Lynn. Our life looked perfect from the outside. The power couple of Oakwood Heights, successful, attractive, childless by choice but doting aunt and uncle to my sister Mia's twins. We hosted dinner parties for Noah's business associates and my law firm colleagues. We donated to the right charities, attended the right events, maintained the right image. But somewhere along the way, something broke between us. The intimacy faded so gradually I barely noticed its absence until it was gone. Noah worked later and later. I buried myself in my cases. We stopped having those long conversations that had once been the backbone of our relationship. "It's just a phase," I told myself. "All marriages go through this." I should have seen the signs. The mysterious weekend conferences, the new cologne, the sudden interest in fitness, the password on his phone that hadn't been there before. But I trusted Noah, or perhaps I was too busy to notice. Or maybe I simply didn't want to see what was happening right in front of me. The woman in our bed was Vanessa Reed, Noah's new executive assistant. 28 to my 39. I'd met her once at a company function 3 months ago. She'd been polite, professional, complimentary of my dress, all while sleeping with my husband. After leaving the house that morning, I drove to my office on autopilot. I canceled my meetings. I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen without seeing it. My phone buzzed incessantly with texts and calls from Noah, which I ignored. My assistant, Marcus, knocked and entered with concern etched on his face. "Eliza, are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine," I said automatically. Then, reconsidering, "Actually, no. I'm not fine. Can you clear my schedule for the next few days?" "Family emergency?" Marcus nodded, no questions asked. "That's why I valued him." "Also," I added, "can you get me the name of the best divorce attorney in the city? Someone who's not afraid to draw blood." His eyebrows shot up, but he simply said, "I'll have a list for you within the hour." After he left, I pulled up my firm's database. As a corporate attorney, divorce law wasn't my specialty, but I knew enough to understand what I needed to do. Noah's company had grown substantially under his leadership, but its foundation, the initial properties, the seed capital, those had all come from his inheritance. Normally, inherited assets remained separate property in a divorce, not subject to division, but there were exceptions, and I needed to find them. I spent the day researching, making notes, and formulating a plan. By evening, I had checked into the Four Seasons downtown under my maiden name and had scheduled consultations with the 3 most ruthless divorce attorneys in the state. Noah had called 17 times. I finally texted him, "Don't come looking for me. I'll contact you when I'm ready to talk. Until then, enjoy your time with Vanessa." His response came immediately. "Please, Eliza, it's not what you think. We need to talk." I turned off my phone, ordered room service, and opened my laptop again. I wasn't just going to divorce Noah. I was going to destroy him, not with violence or illegal acts. No, I would use my intellect, my connections, and most importantly, the law. I would take everything from him, his company, his reputation, his future, all while staying meticulously within the boundaries of legality. The next morning, I met with Diana Blackwell, a silver-haired divorce attorney with a reputation for leaving her opponents financially and emotionally devastated. "So," she said after I'd explained my situation, "you want the nuclear option." "I want what I'm entitled to," I replied. She smiled, a predatory gleam in her eyes. "Mrs. Taylor, or should I say Ms. Chen? I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." Over the next week, I stayed at the hotel, venturing out only for meetings with Diana and to visit my sister Mia, the only person I'd told about Noah's betrayal. "You can stay with us," Mia offered, her twin boys playing in the background of our video call. "Thanks, but I need the anonymity of the hotel right now," I said. "And space to think. Have you talked to him at all?" she asked. "No, and I don't plan to until I have everything in place." Mia's expression was troubled. "Liz, I know you're hurt and you have every right to be, but this calculating approach, it doesn't sound like you. The woman who trusted her husband implicitly, she doesn't exist anymore," I said, my voice flat. "Noah killed her," Mia sighed. "Just don't lose yourself in this revenge plan. That's all I'm saying." I changed the subject, but her words lingered. Was I losing myself? Or was I finally awakening to my own power? On day 9 of my self-imposed exile, I received a text from an unknown number. "This is Vanessa Reed. We need to talk. It's about Noah, and it's important. Meet me at Riverside Cafe tomorrow at 10 a.m. My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity won out. What could she possibly have to say to me? I confirmed the meeting with a single word. Fine. The next morning, I dressed carefully, a power suit in deep burgundy, my most expensive watch, subtle makeup that highlighted rather than concealed the shadows under my eyes. Let her see what she had done to me. Let her see that I was wounded but far from defeated. I arrived at the cafe 10 minutes early and chose a table with a view of the entrance. At precisely 10 a.m., Vanessa walked in, looking less confident than she had in my bedroom. She wore a simple blouse and jeans, her auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sliding into the chair across from me. "You have 5 minutes," I replied, checking my watch. "Use them wisely," she took a deep breath. "I'm pregnant." It's Noah's. The world seemed to tilt sideways for a moment. Noah and I had decided years ago not to have children. A mutual decision. Or so I'd thought. Now this woman carried what I had deliberately chosen not to have. "Congratulations," I said, my voice ice cold. "Is that all?" "No," Vanessa said, fidgeting with a paper napkin. "Noah doesn't know yet. And he's not who you think he is, Eliza." "Clearly," I replied, "since I thought he was faithful." "It's more than that," she insisted. "The company, Taylor Properties, there's something wrong with their finances. Noah's been moving money around, cooking the books. I've seen the transfers." I studied her face, looking for deception. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm scared," she admitted. "At first, I thought he was just this charming, successful man who was unhappy in his marriage. But now," she shook her head. "The other night, he was drunk and angry about some deal falling through. He hit the wall right next to my head. He said if I ever betrayed him, he'd make sure no one would believe me." Part of me wanted to dismiss everything she said as manipulation. But my attorney's instinct told me she was telling the truth, or at least her version of it. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want out," she said simply. "I want to disappear and raise my baby somewhere he can't find us. But I need money to do that, and evidence of his financial crimes would help me negotiate." I leaned back, considering her words. If what she was saying was true, it changed everything. Not just my divorce strategy, but potentially Noah's entire future. Financial fraud at his level could mean federal charges, prison time. "I'll need proof," I said finally. "Documents, records, anything that supports what you're claiming," Vanessa nodded eagerly. "I've been making copies for weeks. I can get them to you. Why now?" I asked. "Why not go to the authorities?" "Because he'd know it was me. And like I said, I'm scared of what he might do." She placed a protective hand over her still flat stomach. "It's not just about me anymore." I felt a stab of something, not quite sympathy, but a kind of grim solidarity. Whatever her role in destroying my marriage, she was now trying to escape a man who might be even more dangerous than I'd realized. "I'll need time to verify whatever you give me," I said. "Don't expect immediate action." "I understand." She pulled out a flash drive from her purse and slid it across the table. "It's all on here. Financial records, emails, recorded conversations, enough to show that something's very wrong." I took the drive, my mind already racing with possibilities. "This doesn't make us friends, Vanessa." "I know," she said, standing up. "But maybe it makes us allies." After she left, I sat in the cafe for another hour, turning the flash drive over in my hands. If Noah was indeed committing financial fraud, it would explain his increasingly erratic behavior over the past year. The mood swings, the secretiveness, the constant stress. It would also give me the ultimate leverage. That night, back in my hotel room, I plugged in the flash drive. As a corporate attorney, I was familiar enough with financial statements to recognize when something didn't add up. And these numbers definitely didn't add up. Millions of dollars were being cycled through shell companies, disguised as legitimate business expenses, then funneled back to accounts that appeared to be controlled by Noah personally. One document particularly caught my attention: a draft agreement between Taylor Properties and Maxwell Development, a company I'd never heard of. The terms were extraordinarily favorable to Maxwell, essentially giving them prime properties at below-market rates. I searched for Maxwell Development online and found almost nothing, just a bare-bones website and an incorporation date from 2 years ago. "A classic front company," I called Diana Blackwell, despite the late hour. "I may have evidence that Noah's been embezzling from his own company," I said without preamble. "How does that change our strategy?" Diana was silent for a moment. "It changes everything," she finally said. "If he's using marital funds for illegal activities, we can make a case that he's dissipated assets. Plus, the threat of criminal charges gives us enormous leverage. But if I use this information, I'd essentially be turning him in," I said, voicing the thought that had been troubling me. "Yes," Diana confirmed. "Are you prepared to do that, was I?" This wasn't just about divorce anymore. This was about potentially sending Noah to prison. The man I had loved for 12 years. The man who had shared my bed, my dreams, my life. The man who had betrayed me in the most intimate way possible. "I need time to think," I told Diana. Don't take too long, she advised. If he realizes what you have, he might try to cover his tracks. Or worse. After hanging up, I stared at the hotel ceiling, my thoughts in turmoil. Revenge was one thing. Criminal prosecution was another. Was I ready to cross that line? The next morning, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Is this Eliza Taylor? A male voice asked when I answered. Yes. Who is this? Detective James Wilson, Oakwood Heights Police Department. I'm calling about Vanessa Reed, my heart stuttered. What about her? She was found in her apartment this morning. There was an incident, he paused. She's in the hospital. Before she lost consciousness, she gave us your name and said you have information about Noah Taylor that's vital to her safety. Is she going to be okay? I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. The doctors are doing everything they can, he said, which wasn't an answer. Mrs. Taylor, I need to speak with you as soon as possible. I'll come to the station right away, I said. And detective? I have a flash drive you're going to want to see. The police station was buzzing with activity when I arrived, flash drive clutched in my hand like a talisman. Detective Wilson, a weathered man in his 50s with kind eyes and a serious demeanor, led me to a small interview room. Ms. Reed was found by her neighbor, he explained once we were seated. She'd been severely beaten. The neighbor called 911 when she heard screaming. And you think Noah did it, I said. It wasn't a question. We're investigating all possibilities, he replied carefully. But according to the neighbor, a man matching your husband's description was seen leaving the building around the time of the assault. I placed the flash drive on the table between us. This contains evidence that my husband has been embezzling funds from Taylor Properties and possibly laundering money through shell companies. Vanessa gave it to me yesterday. She said she was afraid of Noah, that he'd threatened her. Detective Wilson picked up the drive. And you're willing to go on record with this? Yes, I said, the last of my hesitation evaporating. I'll tell you everything I know. For the next 2 hours, I answered questions, signed statements, and agreed to testify if needed. I also called Diana Blackwell, who arrived at the station with a criminal attorney colleague in tow. This changes our approach, Diana said after being briefed. We're not just filing for divorce now. We're seeking an emergency protective order and freezing all assets immediately. By evening, events were moving at dizzying speed. Noah had been brought in for questioning. The flash drive had been examined by the department's financial crimes unit, who deemed the evidence substantial enough to warrant a full investigation. Vanessa remained in critical condition, her pregnancy miraculously still viable despite her injuries. I was escorted back to the Four Seasons by a police officer, advised not to return to the Tudor house yet. Diana had filed emergency motions to freeze Noah's assets and secure my access to joint accounts. The criminal attorney, Martin Reese, was working with the district attorney's office on potential charges. I should have felt triumphant. Noah was facing not just the end of our marriage, but potential criminal charges and the collapse of his carefully constructed image. It was more destruction than I could have engineered on my own, but I felt hollow. A woman was fighting for her life because I'd failed to act quickly enough on what she'd told me. My husband, the man I'd built a life with, had revealed himself to be not just an adulterer, but a violent criminal. The next morning, I awoke to news that Noah had been released on bail, with orders to stay away from both me and Vanessa. I immediately called Detective Wilson. How could you let him out? I demanded. The evidence is strong but circumstantial, he explained. The DA is building a case on both the assault and the financial crimes, but it takes time. He surrendered his passport and is wearing an ankle monitor. That won't stop him if he's desperate, I said. We have officers watching him, Wilson assured me. And Ms. Reed is under police protection at the hospital. She regained consciousness this morning. Can I see her? I asked, surprising myself with the request. There was a pause. I don't see why not. I'll arrange it. 2 hours later, I stood in a hospital corridor, steeling myself before entering Vanessa's room. I wasn't sure why I needed to see her. Perhaps to apologize, perhaps to understand, perhaps simply to confirm that she was truly alive. The woman in the hospital, bed bore little resemblance to either the confident assistant I'd met at the company function or the frightened, expectant mother from the cafe. Her face was swollen, one eye completely closed, her lips split. Monitors beeped steadily beside her, an IV dripping fluids into her arm. "Eliza," she whispered when she saw me, her voice raspy. "Don't try to talk," I said, awkwardly taking a seat beside her bed. I wanted to see if you were okay." "Not really." She attempted a smile, wincing at the pain it caused. "But I will be. The baby, too." "I'm sorry," I said, the words inadequate. "I should have gone to the police as soon as you gave me the flash drive." She shook her head slightly. "Not your fault." "Never thought he'd find out so quickly. How did he know?" "My computer, at work. He must have seen me copying files." Her words came in short bursts, each clearly painful. "Came to my apartment. So angry." I reached out hesitantly, then took her hand. It felt strange to offer comfort to the woman who had been sleeping with my husband, but in that moment, our shared victimization at Noah's hands seemed to transcend the betrayal. "He won't hurt you again," I promised. "Either of you." My eyes flicked to her stomach. A tear slid down her bruised cheek. "I was so stupid. Thought he loved me." "We both believed what we wanted to believe about him," I said. "But now we know the truth, and he's going to pay for it." As I left the hospital, my phone rang. "Diana." Noah's attorney reached out, she said without preamble. "They want to talk settlement." "On the divorce?" "On everything. The divorce, the criminal charges, the company. They're offering a package deal." "What kind of package?" "Full confession to the financial crimes, but a reduced sentence. Admission of the assault on Vanessa with mandatory anger management and probation. The company to be liquidated with proceeds divided among shareholders, including you as his wife. And a divorce settlement giving you the house and 60% of all remaining assets." I considered this. It was more than I'd initially hoped for in the divorce, but it felt insufficient given the extent of his crimes. "Especially the attack on Vanessa. What does the DA say?" I asked. "They're considering it. The financial evidence is strong, but the assault case has complications. Vanessa's relationship with Noah, her pregnancy, her access to company files. A defense attorney could spin it. And Vanessa? Does she get anything in this deal?" "A separate civil settlement," Diana confirmed. "Substantial, from what I understand." I thought about Vanessa in that hospital bed, about the baby she carried, about the bruises on her face and whatever invisible wounds lay beneath them. "I want to talk to Noah," I said suddenly, face to face. "Eliza, that's not advisable." "Not alone," I clarified. "With you and his attorney present." "Before I agree to any settlement, I need to hear him say it," Diana sighed. "I'll arrange it. But only in my office with security present." "That's fine," I said. "Tell him I'll be there tomorrow at noon." That night, I barely slept, rehearsing what I would say to Noah, imagining his responses. Would he be the charming, persuasive man I'd married? The ruthless businessman who'd committed fraud? The violent abuser who'd attacked Vanessa? Or some new version, crafted specifically to manipulate me into accepting his offer? The next day, I dressed with deliberate care. A severe black suit that emphasized my recent weight loss, minimal jewelry, my wedding and engagement rings conspicuously absent. Diana met me in the lobby of her office building. "Remember?" she cautioned as we rode the elevator. "This is not about emotional catharsis. It's a negotiation. Stay calm, stay focused." "I know," I assured her. "I'm not going to fall apart." Noah was already in the conference room with his attorney, Bernard Klein, a man I knew by reputation as skilled but somewhat sleazy. Noah stood when I entered, his face a mask of contrition. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, his normally immaculate clothing slightly rumpled. "Eliza," he said, his voice catching. I ignored him, taking my seat across the table. Diana sat beside me, her expression professionally neutral. "Mr. Taylor," she began, "you requested this meeting to discuss settlement terms. We're here to listen." But I want to be clear that any agreement would need to include full admission of wrongdoing, both financial and personal. Bernard Klein cleared his throat. My client is prepared to make certain admissions in exchange for the terms we outlined yesterday. Before we proceed with formalities, he's asked for a few moments to speak directly to Mrs. Taylor. Diana looked at me questioningly. I nodded. 5 minutes, she said. And we stay in the room. The attorneys moved to opposite corners, giving us a semblance of privacy while remaining within earshot. Noah leaned forward, his eyes, those eyes I'd once found so captivating, pleading with me. Liz, he began, using my old nickname, I know nothing I say can undo what I've done. But I need you to understand. I never meant for any of this to happen. Which part? I asked coolly. The affair? The embezzlement? The beating of your pregnant girlfriend? He flinched at each accusation. I got in over my head, he said, his voice low. The company was struggling after the pandemic. I made some bad investments trying to turn things around. Then I met these guys from Maxwell Development who offered me a way out, a partnership that could save everything. But their terms, I had to find creative ways to make the numbers work. You mean you committed fraud? I translated. He didn't deny it. And then Vanessa started as my assistant, and she was so admiring, so different from... He stopped himself. That's not an excuse. I know that. What I did to you was unforgivable. And what you did to her? I pressed. Was that unforgivable too? Pain flickered across his face. I lost control. When I realized she'd taken those files, that she'd gone to you, I've never been that angry before. It was like watching someone else use my hands. He looked down at those hands now, as if they belonged to a stranger. I still can't believe I did that to her. To my own child. The mention of the child, his child with another woman, sent a fresh wave of pain through me. But I kept my expression impassive. You're right about one thing, Noah, I said. This is unforgivable, all of it. But what bothers me most isn't even the cheating or the lying. It's that I never really knew you. 12 years and you were a stranger all along. That's not true, he protested. The man you knew, the man who loved you, he was real. I just lost him somewhere along the way. Well, I hope the settlement money buys you a good therapist to help you find him again, I said, rising from my chair. We're done here. Diana, please work out the details with Mr. Klein. I trust your judgment completely. Eliza, wait. Noah stood, reaching for me across the table. I stepped back. The only thing I want from you now is your signature on the divorce papers. That, and your word that you'll never contact Vanessa or her child again unless it's through a court-approved process. I won't, he promised, desperation in his voice. I'll sign whatever you want. Just tell me, is there any part of you that could ever forgive me? Not now, but someday? I studied his face, the face I'd woken up to for over a decade, the face I'd once believed I'd grow old with. I searched for some flicker of the man I'd married, some trace of the love we'd shared. Goodbye, Noah, I said, and walked out of the room without looking back. 6 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment overlooking the city park. The autumn leaves were turning, painting the landscape in fiery oranges and reds. Behind me, the sound of laughter drifted through the open doors as Mia supervised her twins and Vanessa's newborn daughter, Lily. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. Noah had pleaded guilty to lesser charges of financial mismanagement and aggravated assault, receiving a 5-year sentence with the possibility of parole after 3. Taylor Properties had been dissolved, its assets distributed to shareholders and creditors. I'd sold the Tudor house, unable to imagine living there again with all its tainted memories. Vanessa and I had developed an unlikely friendship, born of our shared trauma and mutual determination to rebuild our lives. When she'd needed a place to stay after being released from the hospital, I'd offered her the guest room in my temporary apartment. What was meant to be a week had stretched into months, and now we were looking at houses together, a duplex where we could maintain separate living spaces while sharing childcare and support. Tea? Vanessa appeared beside me, 2 steaming mugs in hand. Her physical wounds had healed. though a faint scar remained above her right eyebrow. The emotional wounds would take longer for both of us. Thanks. I accepted the mug, breathing in the familiar scent of chamomile. Lily finally fell asleep, she said, leaning against the railing. Your sister is a miracle worker. She's had practice, I smiled. The twins were colicky for months. We stood in comfortable silence, watching the world below us. Joggers circled the park paths. Children played on the swings. Normal life continuing, as it somehow always did, even after devastation. His appeal was denied, Vanessa said after a while. My lawyer called this morning, I nodded. Diana told me. That's good news. Do you ever... She hesitated. Do you ever think about visiting him? No, I said firmly. That chapter of my life is closed. I've made my peace with it. It was true. The rage that had consumed me in those early days had gradually subsided, replaced by a quiet determination to move forward. I'd thrown myself into my work, making senior partner at the firm. I'd reconnected with old friends, made new ones, even gone on a few dates, though nothing serious yet. Sometimes I think Lily should know her father someday, Vanessa mused, her hand unconsciously moving to her necklace, a simple silver pendant with her daughter's birthstone. Not now, but when she's older, when she starts asking questions. That's your decision, I said carefully. But whatever you choose, I'll support you. I know, she smiled. That's why I can even consider it. Because I'm not facing it alone. My phone chimed with a message. Diana confirming that the last of Noah's overseas accounts had been located and the funds transferred as part of the settlement. The final loose end tied up. Everything okay? Vanessa asked. Yes, I said, putting the phone away. Just work stuff. Inside, Mia called out that dinner was ready. We gathered around the table, my sister and her husband, their twins, Vanessa and baby Lily, and me. An unconventional family formed from the wreckage of betrayal. As I looked around at these people who had helped me rebuild my life, I realized something profound. In trying to destroy Noah, I'd actually freed myself. The woman I'd become in the aftermath was stronger, wiser, more compassionate than before. I'd survived the unthinkable and emerged not just intact, but somehow more fully myself. Later that night, after everyone had gone, I sat alone in my living room with a glass of wine. On the coffee table lay a letter I'd received that morning, an offer from a prestigious law firm in Chicago specializing in representing victims of financial crimes and domestic abuse. They wanted me to head their new client advocacy division, using my personal experience and legal expertise to help others navigate similar journeys. I picked up the letter, rereading the final paragraph. Your unique perspective as both an attorney and someone who has lived through these experiences would be invaluable to our clients. We believe you could transform not just individual lives, but potentially the way these cases are handled throughout the legal system. A year ago, I couldn't have imagined finding purpose in my pain. Now, it seemed like the most natural evolution possible. I took out my phone and created a new calendar entry. Next to tomorrow's date, October 17th, I wrote, "The day Eliza Chen began again." Then I sent a quick email accepting the Chicago position, finished my wine, and went to bed, ready for whatever the next chapter might bring.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.